What's up and welcome to the Grant Burton Film and Television Show. I'm your host Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton. Or you can go to forwardsbygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. This is the show dedicated to all things film and television. That's the news, reviews, previews, features, opinions, and more. Today on the show I'm reviewing Westworld Season 2, as well as Sicario Soldado and Supergirl Season 3. If you like all of that, please subscribe, please give me a thumbs up, share this across social media. If you don't like it, suggest it to someone else, they might like it. Any support you give me will be much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's get on with the show. We start each and every week with the news. You know, one of these days, I'm gonna do a show that just works super well. Everything just happens the way I want it. But hey, I'm doing this all on my own, is what I get. The first story, Tom Holland has revealed that Spider-Man Homecoming sequels will be called Spider-Man Far From Home. This kind of spoils Avengers 4. I'm not going to get into what those spoilers are exactly, but if you've seen Avengers 4, you know that now you know what happens. If you've seen Avengers 3, you know what happens in Avengers 4. Because, well, this film shouldn't exist. And that's where Marvel stabbed himself in the foot a bit by announcing films after Avengers 4, despite not having the characters. And I don't like this title. I think it's too long. It's not catchy. Far From Home, that could mean that he's going to a foreign country. He has been seen filming in London, so that could be something. Or maybe they're going even further from home and maybe it's tying in the Doctor Strange going into some sort of supernatural realm, or Guardians of the Galaxy going into space. It's really hard to tell, but my Spider-Man is very much a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I like him in New York, dealing with local crime and villains that way on. So Far From Home, not what I want from a Spider-Man film. What the hell? Story number 2. We're finally on to story number 2 now. This is from Kevin. No, that's not even story. No, it is story number 2. Kevin Berwick at MovieWeb. Ewan McGregor to return as Obi-Wan in Star Wars Episode 9, and he's set to secretly film scenes for the J.J. Abrams movie. I thought Ewan McGregor was the best thing about the prequels. I'm a rare Star Wars fan that actually really likes the prequel films, so I'm all for this, but if he returns in Episode 9, working alongside the likes of Mark Hamill, it'll look a little odd if he doesn't look like Alec Guinness, and if he doesn't sound like Alec Guinness. And a little trivia, if you didn't know, he actually recorded dialogue for The Force Awakens, so he's technically in this sequel already. There's a vision scene in The Force Awakens, and he does one line of dialogue in that, so yeah. And could this be him gearing up for his own movie? Possibly. There are rumors still of an Obi-Wan movie, despite the news that came out last week. And if he does return in this film, I can't imagine it being a big role. I think it'll be like a one scene kind of thing. Something like Yoda in The Last Jedi. But yeah, I'm all for this. I like Ewan McGregor. I like Star Wars. Bring him back, I say. Rodrigo Perez of The Playlist says that the Obi-Wan movie is being scaled back and will debut on Disney's new streaming service. So, you have a Star Wars film, and you're going to debut it on a streaming service. That's a pretty ballsy move, but what a way to get people to buy into that streaming service, especially if it's the only way to watch that film. It's rumored that this is going to be a scaled back Star Wars film, the same with the Boba Fett film. They're going to do it at a lower budget. It's going to be on a much smaller scale, storyline wise, and I think it has to, because especially if you're getting Ewan McGregor to play Obi-Wan, you have to have it set on Tatooine. You need a damn good reason to make him leave Tatooine and not watch over Luke Skywalker, because that's his whole role in the franchise. And as for the scaled backness of the Star Wars films, I'm all for that. I thought these standalone spin-off stories were going to do just that. They don't all have to be big epic blockbuster adventures. I think that's where Solo kind of missed the mark a little. But yeah, Disney streaming service, I think it's coming out this year, might be next year. I can't really remember. I don't know if they've officially announced it, but I'm really interested in it. We already know there's going to be exclusive shows on there, an exclusive Star Wars show as well, so keep an eye out for that. Oh, this is getting on my nerves now. Kevin Feige promises more female and LGBTQ plus characters in the MCU. We are 10 years into the MCU now, and we've got, what, 19 films? It's pretty bad that we've never had a film led by a woman, and we've never had a single LGBTQ plus character in the MCU yet. The Black Widow movie might be happening at long last. It's been rumored for a long time now, and Scarlett Johansson's been pushing for it. And Kevin Feige's hinted that there is already one character in the MCU that is LGBTQ+, and the rumors are that it's Tessa Thompson, who coincidentally just came out as bisexual this week. But does that mean the rumors are already suggesting that it's her character that is going to be bisexual in this franchise? So it's probably going to be her. I just kind of wish this had happened already. Paul Heath at The Hollywood News states that Kenneth Branagh's Death on the Nile, the sequel to his Murder on the Orient Express, will face off against Star Wars next year. The Murder on the Orient Express came out in the December of last year. Last year. And it done alright, it done pretty well. It's getting a sequel. So that film was somewhat competing against Star Wars anyway. And after Solo was a big disappointment, I don't think Star Wars is quite as safe at the box office anymore. So I think we can put competition against it and it'll do alright. Look at Jumanji last year as well. Jumanji went right up against Star Wars and done really well. And it helps that it's a different genre and a different type of film. And that's exactly what Death on the Nile is going to be. They often do that. If you've got a big blockbuster film coming out, here's another independent film just to please another audience. So, yeah, smart move. DC Entertainment has revealed its subscription-based streaming service. There's a lot to unpack here. New live-action shows on the service will be Titans, Doom Patrol, and Swamp Thing. That's just to name a few. You're also getting new animated shows such as Young Justice and an adult Harley Quinn series, as well as access to classic DC shows and films such as The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Richard Donner's Superman, and Batman the Animated Series. And you're going to get access to a rotating selection of thousands of DC comics. There's going to be a fan forum, DC Encyclopedia, you're going to have exclusive access to merchandise and rewards, and it's supposed to debut this fall with a beta coming in August. So, on the surface that sounds brilliant for DC fans, but once you actually dig into it, you'll notice there are a few little issues. So, it debuts this fall with beta coming in August. The beta is only for the United States. I hope this is just for the beta. If the actual service doesn't come to other regions like the UK, that's a huge missed opportunity. I think it will though. There's also no pricing details, but I imagine it's going to compete with Netflix and Amazon, so you're talking $10 or £10 or less. And as for the comic book area, it says a rotating selection of DC comics. So this isn't everything DC Comics has ever done. This is just a select few that are going to be added and removed regularly. That seems like a huge mistake in my opinion. And does this apply to the films and TV shows on there as well? Are we going to be watching like Lois and Clark season 1 get to the end and it turns out they've removed season 2, 3, 4. I hope not. And also, it's worth pointing out that none of the CW shows are on here because Netflix, I believe, has the streaming rights to all of those, and none of the current films in the DCEU, like Justice League or Batman v Superman, are going to be on there either. It seems really silly how limited this is. Of course, there are legalities behind it all, I'm sure, but especially for the comic book thing, I think that's a huge mistake to not have everything available. Next up, Boris Kitt from The Hollywood Reporter reports that Jared Leto is the star in Sony's Spider-Man spin-off Morbius from director Daniel Espinosa. I'm not familiar with Morbius. He's a side character in Spider-Man, I suppose, but notice how this is a Spider-Man spin-off from Sony. How can you have a spin-off movie from a movie that doesn't exist? Tom Holland's Spider-Man is in the MCU. Spider-Man Homecoming is part of that franchise. Sony doesn't have a Spider-Man film yet, unless you're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man, which I thought was finished. So this is really misleading to call it a Spider-Man spin-off movie. In fact, it's just flat out inaccurate, I think. But yeah, there'll be people who like this. And Jared Leto, you cast him as a vampire in this film. He's a well-renowned method actor, so maybe not a smart move, because you know you're going to hear stories of him jumping out on people in alleyways and then trying to bite them in the neck or something stupid like that, because he does that. So, but he does look like a vampire. I mean, the guy doesn't age. He changes his hair every now and then, but he looks exactly the same no matter when you're looking at him. And why are they making this film? Simple. Money. Sony has the license to Spider-Man in film, so in order to keep that license, they've got to keep making Spider-Man films, and that's why they're doing Morbius. Venom's being released later this year. They've got an animated Spider-Man coming out later this year as well. None of them are related to the MCU, so clearly Sony's just trying to get that license, suck it dry, and gobble it up for as long as they can. So, yeah, this is a cash grab, plain and simple. Right, I'm back. Sorry about all that technical issues, but we are back with the news. Chris Evangelista at Slash Film says that the solo screenwriter, Jonathan Kasdan, has taken over Indiana Jones 5 scriptwriting duties, and the film will miss its 2020 release date because of that. David Koepp was previously writing the script for this, and he wrote the script for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We don't know if this is a rewrite or if it's just touching up on what's already been written. But I'm hoping this film's a big send-off for Harrison Ford, because let's face it, he can't be Indiana Jones too much longer. Well, an argument can be made that he shouldn't be Indiana Jones now. Jonathan Kasdan is the son of Lawrence Kasdan as well, who is the screenwriter of Raiders of the Lost Ark, so it seems fitting that he's doing this film, especially if it's going to be Harrison Ford's final one. Right. We are moving on to the trailers now. There's a few trailers this week. 4 of them, to be precise. And some of them were good, some of them were bad. Let's get on to it. The first trailer was The Predator. And I liked this trailer for the most part. About 2/3 of this trailer I thought was good. They look like they're doing something different. It doesn't look like it's just a predator hunting them all down again. It looks like they're actually hunting the predator this time. There was a lot of one-liners and cheesy jokes in this trailer, and they weren't good, but I would argue that this is exactly what this film needs, because if you go back to the original Predator, that's basically what the film was. One of my favorite one-liners was, "I ain't got time to bleed," from Jesse the Governor Ventura. The cast looks good. Boyd Holbrook, I like him. Olivia Munn, you got Sterling K. Brown, Thomas Jane, and Keegan-Michael Key in there as well. The one thing I didn't like about this trailer was what appears to be the villain of the film is some sort of super predator, maybe like genetically modified or something. It just looks a bit silly. Disenchantment is a new Netflix series by Matt Groening, for the maker of Futurama and The Simpsons, and this trailer, it is just a teaser, so there's not much to go on, but noticeably it's got one of the voice actors from Futurama and The Simpsons, and it looks animation style like Futurama and The Simpsons. So if you like Futurama and The Simpsons, this could be for you. I really don't like The Simpsons, but I really like Futurama, so hopefully it's more like Futurama and less like The Simpsons. The next trailer is The House with a Clock in Its Walls. I've literally just watched this trailer about half an hour ago, and I was not impressed. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a Harry Potter ripoff. It's all about magic and warlocks and stuff like that. It's a young adult thing, and yeah, it is what it is. Some people like it, but it's not for me. We are moving on now to reviews. This week I've got a lot of reviews to come, and the first one is Westworld Season 2. I liked the first season of Westworld, and I liked this season. I think it's not great. I would argue at times it's not even good, but the biggest criticism I can give this season of Westworld is that it's really just inconsistent. Sometimes there's like a really good episode, and then the next one is just really boring. I feel like there was like 3 or 4 episodes more than needed. And if you remember the TV show Lost, it was very much adding mystery and questions, and you really wanted to find out the answers. And some of them came along, others didn't. This show seems to be doing the same thing, but it's just being really mysterious and cryptic for like the hell of it. We're not really getting clear answers anywhere, and unlike Lost, I'm not craving to know what some of the answers are. I'm just annoyed that I'm not getting them. But otherwise, this is a really well-made show. There's a lot of great cinematography, brilliant cast, especially Ed Harris. And the characters, though, in the first season, we're introduced to the characters. They set up the situation and scenario really well. Evan Rachel Wood's character is probably the heart and soul of the first season. You engage with her, she's very relatable. She's like the innocent person trying to find out what's going on. And then in this season, she's just bloodthirsty, murdering people left, right, and center. And this goes for almost every other character. They're just going around killing each other. And it's not relatable. It's a little boring because it's repetitive. And yeah, I think they've lost the plot by the end. There are way too many twists and turns in this season as well. And a lot of them are very, very predictable. I'm going to get into a couple of spoilers now, so if you have not finished Westworld Season 2, maybe just skip ahead. The end of this season could very well have been the end of the show altogether, but it's not, because we know we're getting a Season 3. And I think the end of this season went a little silly. It went a little too fantastical. They basically opened up like this artificial world that only the androids can go in. And that's meant to lead all the humans to think that the androids have just killed themselves, but they haven't. Yeah, it was a little odd. There's a lot of things left unanswered. It's very confusing at times. I think Westworld Season 3 is going to be completely different from all the previous 2 seasons. It looks like they're going into the real world. It looks like we're going to get much more of just a science fiction show about androids living in the real world. And that's a little disappointing, I think. Supergirl Season 3. The one thing I hate about these CW shows is you have like the Flash, you have Arrow, and you have Supergirl. But the shows aren't about Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl. They start off that way, but they quickly turn into, oh, he has Team Flash, he has Team Arrow, and he has Team Supergirl. I watch these shows because I like the main characters, not because I want to see a team of side characters from comic book history. And it's annoying to have a show that's supposed to be about Supergirl that's not really about her. Also, 22 episodes long is just way too much. The stories get dragged out. It's very, very repetitive. It basically, he has the villain this week, she beats them. He has the villain next week, she beats them. And there's like a loose thread going through them all. It's very predictable as well because of that. This season tried to mix it up and gave it a darker tone. It's Supergirl is in a tough place after the events of season 2, and that's fine, but I feel like this show has lost its character and charm because of that. One of the reasons I liked the first season of Supergirl so much because it was a bit lighter in tone. It was like friendly and smiley a little, and now it's just completely different. The other thing is that this is a network show. It doesn't have the huge budgets like that cable shows have, so the CGI is really just bad. And there are too many characters in the show. And now we're going into spoilers, so if you don't want to know what happens, stop listening now. The last episode was really annoying because, like every other superhero show, it revolved around a big fight between the good guys and the bad guys. And I thought they were going to take a bold move and kill off a bunch of the good guys. There was a moment where 3 people, I think, just died just like that. And it was like, wow, they've actually done it. And I was impressed by that. But then all of a sudden, no, Supergirl can suddenly go through time and change it. Like, that is just ridiculous. Why do you need these characters alive? They're not doing anything, they're not adding anything to the show. One of these characters, big spoilers, isn't actually going to be in the next season, so why didn't they just kill him in the first place? It's annoying. Why make a big bold move that's really good, really cool, only to like reverse it? And this isn't just Supergirl, this is pretty much every other show. Arrow's done it. Katie Cassidy, I don't know how many times she's died in Arrow and came back. It's just stupid. And I get it that these are actors, they want a job. You don't want to fire them just because the storyline needs it, but sometimes you do have to move on and give them an opportunity to leave the show. Next up, Sicario Soldado. I went to an early preview screening of this week, and I really like this film. This is a really well done film. Noticeably, it's not directed by Denis Villeneuve, and Roger Deakins is not doing the cinematography. You can tell that. If you compare the first film to this film, the first film is way better visually. But that's not to say this is an ugly film, because it's not. It's a really well made film. The cast is brilliant. Benicio del Toro is great in the role as the hitman. And just to tell you what this film is about, basically, Mexican cartels are smuggling terrorists across the US-Mexico border, and the terrorists are doing bad things in America. So they get Josh Brolin's military character to come in, do some dirty tactics to try and stop it, and he recruits Benicio del Toro's hitman character. It is a sequel to the first film, but it's a sequel that doesn't really acknowledge the events of the first film. Yeah, you've got these 2 characters from the first film, but they don't mention what happened in the first film at all, and you could very well just walk into this having no idea what happened in the first film and get a great, enjoyable experience. I will say this though, the film is very tense and brutal at times. The score is fantastic. There's a lot of like Hans Zimmer vibes in the score, long beats and drawn out sections that really makes it like just intense, and you're always waiting for the build up to pay off, and it's like that throughout the entire film. As for the brutality of it, there are explicit scenes of terrorism and violence and gore. One scene very early in the film, so this isn't really a spoiler, it's like in the first 10 minutes, you just see a group of terrorists walk into a supermarket and blow the place up. Women, children screaming, It's really like in your face. You see every detail of it, and yeah, this is tough. A lot of people probably will not like that. Another thing people might not like is that this is a very masculine macho man film. The military characters are very men's men carrying guns, big muscles, and it's not like Predator that I mentioned earlier. It's not like exaggerated or anything, but the female characters in this film are in much smaller roles. There's a character who's just a child. I don't know how old she is exactly, but she really does hold her own up alongside Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin. And finally, there are good actions, and it's just a great thriller. I do recommend people see this film because it's really good. And that's all I've got for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, it'd be great if you subscribed, share it across social media, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment, topic, question, some criticism and advice down below in the comments section. I'm sorry for the technical hiccups. It's annoying. I'm gonna try and work that out. I know what the problem is, but it's just hard to fix. This has been the Film and TV Show hosted by Grant Burton. I'm Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton, or you can go to postbygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. This is a weekly show. I will be back next week. Until then, I'm out.